Pixar, what happened? Brave. As you probably guessed from my intro, I'm not a huge fan of this movie. It's not a complete waste, but actually that's what kind of makes it really infuriating for me, because there are parts and components that are excellent in this movie and then they just get wasted. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself though. Why don't we start with what works? This was Pixar's first crack at a princess story, which is a Disney standard, and you know what? The princess herself, Merida, love her. I love her visually. I love this crazy mane of hair that she's got. I love that she's into archery. I'm a sucker for archery. I used to do it when I was younger, so she kind of hooks me in a little bit there. I love her attitude. They sort of play that independent woman, but it's not so much that it overdoes and makes her feel like a character who's like out of time or anything. She still feels very much of that time and of that era. She's just stubborn as heck. I like really pretty much the whole first half hour of this movie where everything's getting established, because I love the setting, the location, and the way that it's realized. It's just gorgeous. I love Merida's dad. I love Billy Connolly. The man's amazing and he's terrific in this. I dig the mom too. It's a pretty good balance, being caring but still trying to reel this wild girl in a little bit. The thing opens really well, it builds really well, the initial setup is strong, and then the whole thing just goes completely off the rails once the main plot actually kicks in. You know, maybe that's an overstatement to say that it completely goes off the rails. It's not that it suddenly becomes a bad movie, it just very suddenly becomes a movie that's not nearly as good as it started out to be or as it should be. Because the actual story that they choose to tell, the hinge of the plot and what actually becomes the main conflict and what has to be done to resolve it, is a waste. It is a waste of a fantastic character and of a fantastic setting, because they really make good use early on of the setting in terms of the clans and the sort of the tensions between them, and the will-o'-the-wisp is a great bit of regional folklore. But then when the actual main thing kicks in, it has this mystical element to it that is not in any way tied into or unique to that setting. And there's a ton of mysticism, folklore, all this stuff from that part of the world, and they don't use any of it. They have this mystical aspect that really could have happened anywhere. And ultimately that's really what disappoints me, is they've got this amazing character, this amazing setting, and then the story they actually tell didn't require either of those. The story could have been done with a lesser character in any setting, and the story itself could have been told just as well. And again, the story is not terrible, but this character in this setting deserves so much better. And I can actually pinpoint where the thing goes off the rails. And that is the scene with the witch. Just tone alone, everything goes completely out of whack when that scene happens. Now, it's a good scene, don't get me wrong, but it feels like it's from a completely different movie. It feels like it's from a Shrek movie, and I don't mean that derisively. It would be one of the better scenes in a Shrek movie, but it's not in keeping with what's gone on up to that point. Now, I'm kind of dodging about what actually happens following the witch scene, because I'm trying to keep this spoiler free. I understand most people who want to see it have seen it by now, but spoiler free is kind of my mantra. But if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And you know, I'll be honest, maybe part of the reason I'm so hard on this movie is because it won the Oscar, and it didn't deserve it. It didn't even come close. It won the Oscar over Paranorman, which was a gorgeous, mature, fun, funny, intelligent movie, and over Wreck-It Ralph, which was one of the biggest surprises for me of that year. That movie still touches me. It makes me cry. That movie is powerful a million times more than Brave would ever be. So the fact that Brave won, it's insulting. It's like, oh, Pixar's the best. No, not automatically, not always. So maybe I get a little more riled up against this movie than is necessary, just because of how frustrated I am at the wasted potential and the fact that it won an Oscar. The movie in and of itself, it's not bad. It's not a bad movie, but it could have been so much more and so much better, and it should have been. It was made by people who should know better. So, what are you gonna do? So have you seen Brave? What were your thoughts on it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Most people I know seem to find it somewhere in the middle. Let's talk the high end though. What do you think is Pixar's best movie? I could go a couple of directions on that question myself. I kind of lean towards The Incredibles a little bit, but honestly there's a couple of others right up there. It's not an easy call. But whatever you think it is, drop something down in the comments and we'll talk about it. As for me, I'll be back as soon as I can get my next fix.